Go some. Dang,
Woo!
that was ripping, dude. Awesome. Rick Stojak down there in San Diego, killing it. Hello, everybody. Welcome to Drummers Education Connection. I'm Bart Robley, and I'm here with the obviously ass kicking Rick Stojak down in San Diego. And below him out in Tucson, Arizona, the equally ass kicker, Chip Ritter. How's everybody doing
Hello.
today? I'm Bart
Doing good.
Robley. And yeah, it was great, man. And here we are on deck, Drummers Education Connection. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Today, if you well, if you're watching us on YouTube, you're not watching us today because we're only streaming to Facebook. Because Jeremy's not here today. He is our normal admin on stuff, and so he's not with us today. So because of that, we're only going to Facebook. But if you normally watch on YouTube later, I'm going to rip the video down. I'll put it up on YouTube so you guys can watch it there, and be part of it there. And today, what we're talking about is I get by with a little help from my friends. But before we do that, what I want to do is what we normally do. We kind of start things off at taking care of some business here. We've got our Patreon page. If you guys want to help us keep the light on. And look, Chip just bought a new hat, so he needs as much help as he can get. He's sporting a new derby. So if you want to help us keep the lights on, you can support us on our Patreon page. And the other thing that we want to do is we want to talk about good things, the stuff that we have going on in our own lives, whether it's drumming, our personal lives, whatever, just good stuff that we got going on. So I'm going to kick it over to you, to Rick. What's happening? What kind of good stuff do you got going on, my friend? What's happening? Uh-oh, you know what, Rick? Your mic's cutting out on me, bud.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
There you are. There you are. There you are.
I had it off when I was playing.
There you go.
You know, if you drum with that mic on, the mic is going to pick up the drums, and then you could get more phase and echo. So I've got the switch when I drum, and you got to know to turn it on and off. So obviously I didn't. So
well, very cool. Very
so
cool.
my good thing is Chip Ritter's hat. That's man, look at that hat. Chip, it's kind of a shout out to Bottom, but it's very, very Chip Ritter. Very stylish.
Very Chip Ritter.
It's very, very cool.
My friend David Betts just messaged me and said, "You're looking good in that hat, Chip." I said, "Thank you."
There it is.
You know, the thing that's cool about that hat, it takes me back to a couple of NAMM shows where SMB did the NAMM Jam, and Chip came out and played, and he was all decked out in his suit and tie and had on his derby hat, and just came out and killed it with us, and it was so much fun. So
that was a blast, man. I remember that.
That was great. So your good thing is Chip's hat. I love it. Chip, what's other than your hat?
I have more good things.
You got more good things. Okay, I'm sorry.
My volume 4, Mastering Triplet Grooves with almost 400 songs, is at the printer right now. I'm gonna have it out Wednesday.
Nice.
So, yeah.
Nice. Congratulations.
It's a little advertisement, but my 3/4 sleeve logo shirt just came in. So
yeah,
very cool.
Oh, so dude, you got those are like baseball tees. Dude, I love baseball tees. Yeah, right?
They're really fun to wear. Yeah, I know.
Dude, when I was a kid and we went to, you got to concerts and you bought the concert t-shirt, you saved up all your money. I always bought the baseball tee. They were just the coolest thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah. Okay, so we got Chip. What's going on with you down in Tucson?
Man,
what's new with you that's going on?
Chapter on fear today.
Whoa.
In my book, Stick Tricks and Showmanship, I called my friend Bart Robley and I said, "Man, tell me I can do it." And he was like, "You can do it, man. You know you can do it." And I was like, "All right, man, I'm doing it." And so I did it. I finished my chapter on fear, finished it, editing it. And I'm looking forward to my book coming out this year sometime. I don't know when, but it's happening. My book is almost done. Stick Tricks and Showmanship. by Chip Ritter. How about you, Bart? What's good with you?
You know what's good with me is there's so many good things for me that I can't even, I don't know where to start. I'm getting ready to tomorrow. SMB leaves on tour, and I get paid to play music, and so that's an amazing thing. Just the fact that I get to do that and play in a band with these amazing musicians is fantastic. And you know what else is really amazing to me is DEC, Drummers Education Connection. Seriously, just the fact that we do this every Tuesday and we've reached so many drummers. But I think the more important thing to me is that we help other drummers and we try to inspire and enlighten them, whether they be young or old, have been playing for years, or their fellow teachers or whatever. We've been able to help some people, and I'm very thankful for that. So those are my good things. Those are my good things for today. So.
Nice.
All right. So you guys may have noticed that we titled today's show, I Get By with a Little Help from My Friends. Chip did call me this morning, by the way, and thank you for trusting in me to motivate you, Chip. That was very cool. Yeah. So this is how this whole thing started. Okay. Couple of weeks ago, matter of fact, I think it was last week, I get a phone call in the morning, just out of the blue. I'm sitting here in my office and kind of doing my normal morning routine, getting my day ready for teaching and what am I going to practice today, all my stuff. And I get a phone call from Chip, and he literally just, "Hey, bud, how you doing? I'm just checking in. What's going on? How are you? You've been on my mind and my heart." And it made me feel so good. It just made me feel great that he would want to do that. And then that same day, that was really weird. At the time, things were going great. And then, as your day goes, I kind of went into this nosedive. And by the end of the day, we're being really vulnerable here, by the way. That's what this show is about. By the end of the day, I was just not feeling good about myself. I wasn't there. I wasn't in a good headspace. And I really kind of got involved in something that we've talked about here on the show, and that is imposter syndrome, where for some reason my head just went there, right? And one of the things that I do is I write and I read a lot of motivational stuff and self-help books and all this stuff, but I just wasn't feeling it. So I'd already talked to Chip. It was either that day or the day before. And so I thought, you know what I need? I need a shot of the positive energy hand grenade, Rick Stojak. So I called him and I just laid it on the table. I'm like, dude, I am just not having a good day. I'm this, I'm that. I'm playing and I'm sucking and I'm blah, 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 blah. And I'm just, being a whiny baby. And he lifted me up and he said all these really cool things to me that helped me feel good about what it is that I do. And the Beatles song, I Get By with a Little Help from My Friends, I always use that, and I'll bring that up later in the show on certain things. But I use that a lot because I do think it's so important to have a support network around you. And I'm fortunate that I have a lot of support networks, and Drummers Education Connection is one of them. And it's not just the four of us, it's only three, but it's not just the four of us. Our viewers and the people that watch the show and chime in on the show and are part of this community that we've built. They uplift us as much as hopefully we uplift you guys. And so that's what today's show is about. So first of all, Chip and Rick, thank you so much. And I always call Rick the positive. What's that, bud?
The bill is in. I sent you a bill, 125.
Okay, perfect. It's well worth every penny. I always call Rick the positive energy hand grenade because when you get around him, he's like, poof, you can't not be in a good mood around Rick. Yep. So Rick, what is it that you think that it is that helps us help other people, or when other people help us? What do you think it is about lifting each other up that drummers do and that we have that's different maybe than other instruments? Because we talk about that a lot too. So it's a huge subject. So let's just jump in there. What do you think?
Well, I think that helping another person out out is the most healing thing that you can do. We all know about, charity work, doing charity, being generous, giving. It's one of the most enlightening things and most positive things that you can do for yourself. And
Mhm.
and I think us drummers are all kind of, we're a unique instrument. We are the most unique instrument. Just look at how everyone plays different. It plays on different sets and, different size sets. So we have kind of a different role in the band. So I think that we all can relate. And we've talked a lot about this. Drummers, as we'll get together and what's that riff? What's that riff? We were doing it just before the show started. Bart was working on his drum clinic that he's going to do for Deck Day in San Francisco in April, and running it by us. And it's like, wow, look at that, Bart. That's a great idea. And what you'll find is that everybody really is good. I mean, that's what I find. Like I can learn from everybody.
Right.
And I've been at this forever and ever and ever. But everybody's got their own unique spin. And it's just fascinating. And I think that we all feel like, oh, I'm not as good as this one. I'm not as good as that one. We get jealous of all these different players. And the truth is, when you watch someone else playing, it always seems like magic. But
Mhm.
it's just different than what you do. So there's room for everybody, and that's the good news. Bart, you were talking about like, man, comparing yourself to maybe some other drummers, and you're like,
Right.
God, I'm in Sam Morrison band. I'm just laying down floor on the floor, right? And what is that compared to Billy Cobham, who we just interviewed? It's like, what it is the perfect part for the song.
Yeah.
And that's it, and it's a discipline, and it's hard to play simple,
It is. And
Oh.
one of the things that I thought that was, that was important for me to share right now about that, was SMB has such a diverse palette of music, because we do a lot of stuff that is really complex, like a lot of the Allman Brothers stuff,
Oh,
whip and post and one way out, and you're playing in odd time signatures and all this stuff. And then the Bob Seger show that we do, it's the music, the songs are phenomenal, but they're not musically super challenging. But I do get a drum solo during the show, and so I get to throw down a little bit. There are some songs that have some cool drum parts to them, but it was more, for me, I think it was like what I really went into after you and I talked, Rick, was I know the book, meaning like I can play every song, well over 200 songs, just okay, let's do it. And I've been doing it for 25 years. So I don't know if maybe I was falling into a rut of, I don't want to say boredom, but I don't know, maybe I just wasn't being thankful that day, because I am so thankful for everything that we do with that group. I mean, I'm so thankful, it is so incredibly important to me. Maybe that day I just wasn't feeling it, but you did help lift me up. You really did.
I think
So,
the point is, though, is that everybody goes through that. I mean, we've interviewed
yeah,
some of the greatest drummers in the world on this show, and they all go through it.
yeah,
Every single person. And I think no matter what your profession is, you go through it.
yeah.
So that bit of community is definitely helpful,
Yeah.
and we're and if you're really down, of course, man, get some professional help. If you're really, really down, call your friends, get some professional help. Don't try to party your way through it, because partying your way through not, that's just bearing it. That's just kicking the can down the road.
Believe me, I went through years of, Chip and I have talked about this on shows. I went through years of vodka cadabra, everything's gone. And then you wake up the next day and no.
Yeah.
You're right. Chip, what about you, my man? You are a very uplifting person, and the whole Drummers
Oh, thanks,
Education
man.
Connection thing is because you made the phone calls and made it happen. I mean, this is kind of you're the spark that ignited this thing. talk to me about where you kind of feel like you fit into that, where it's like, okay, I'm helping, I'm uplifting, and talk to me about what you feel about the community.
Well, I think that the drummers, I think you guys are right. And there's a lot of good things that have already been said, that drummers as a whole are usually a lot more friendly to each other and sharing of the craft than most other people and musicians. I don't know why that is, but well, we're really first on scene to lend a hand. I think that I know the problem with me is when I get isolated, when I stop reaching out and staying in touch with other people, then I start doing more of this selfish, self-centered thinking. And that type of thinking, when I'm only thinking about my own little world, I end up getting into trouble with that. Versus when I call a friend and ask them how they're doing, and I get concerned with how things are going in their life, then I kind of get out of myself, and I feel that lifts me up in itself, just that action.
Right.
So, I mean, it's a scary thing to be alone, and you don't have to be. And like Rick said, if you're really down, seek professional help. Get on the phone and make a phone call and reach out, because there's help all over the place for that stuff.
Right. One of the stories that I want to share really quick, and that both of you guys have touched on, that drummers are there for each other. And I met this guy, and this is a perfect example of that. This story. I met this guy a couple of, I don't know, probably 10 years ago. And he went by the name of Dean Drums. And Dean was just an incredibly uplifting guy. We lost him a few years ago, but he was just such a sweetheart of a guy. And he calls me up one day. He'd found me on Facebook, and we were following each other. And he calls me up one day, and he goes, "Hey man, I really want some drum lessons." But he explained his situation to me, and he wasn't in a position at all where he could pay for drum lessons. And I said, "Well, come over, let's see what you got, and let's do some stuff." So he came over, and I gave him some lessons, and we just had a fun time, and we became fast friends. And he goes, "Well, I feel like I owe you something. So, why don't I tech for you on some shows?" I said, "That'll work out perfect." So he came along, helped me set up my drums, and hung out. And he was just a great guy. We had a lot of fun hanging out together. Well, one day, we were playing, we had a double header gig. And basically what it wasn't like I'm playing a double header Thursday, where we just set up in the same venue and matinee show and dinner show, right? It's at a performing arts center. This was a thing where we were playing a club, a matinee show or an afternoon show in downtown Fullerton. And then we had to leave there and get all the way across town. Like literally, and believe me, in Los Angeles, when you try to get across town, it's no easy feat. For I think it was like a 5 o'clock show or something like that. And both that particular show, I was backline, so I didn't need to take a kit, but I knew there was no way I could get done with the gig, pack up my gear, get it into my truck, and get across town. And so Dean says to me, he goes, "Well, dude, just play my drums." He goes, "I'll bring my drums over. You tear it apart, set it up exactly like you want, do the gig, stand up and walk out. Just go, just leave, and I'll take my drums home." And I was like, "Oh my God, dude, that's like cool. So cool." Yeah. So he had this beautiful Ludwig Blue Oyster swirl drum set. He brought it over. He goes, "Just play my cymbals. I don't care. You can get, it's one gig. Play my cymbals. You can get through the gig." The only thing I brought was my stick bag and my in-ear monitors. That was it. And did the gig. He goes, we got done with the last note. He goes, "Dude, go, just leave, just leave." I was like, "Okay," grab my sticks, and I split, made it to the other gig. Everything went great. Now, my point with this is drummers help each other. I mean, you ask a guitar player, can you imagine two guitar players going, "Hey, can I borrow your axe for a gig?" They'd be like, "Get out of here." There's no way. I don't know that for a fact, but it just seems there's more competition there. And that sense of community, I think, is huge. And he really helped me out. What do you guys think about that? Have you ever had a situation like that where you needed something like that? Where you needed somebody to play? Chip, I'll throw it to you.
In 1998, I was working as a country drummer on the cruise ship MS Holiday from Carnival Cruises. And I was in the country band, in-house band there on the ship. And a guy came up to me and he said, "Hey man, I'm in a country band on this main stage over here and we're playing later tonight. Is there any way at all? I forgot my hi-hat stand. Is there any way at all I could borrow your hi-hat stand just for an hour? Please, if it's okay with you." And I was like, "Sure, man, great." You know what I mean? That's not a problem. And I lent him my hi-hat stand. He went and played the gig, brought it right back, and everything was cool. And I forgot all about that. So flash forward to 2015, I'm at the Winter NAMM show, and this guy comes up to the booth and says, "You lent me your hi-hat stand in 1990. I was like, "Whoa." And he's following me around NAMM, and we're talking, and he took a video of me playing drums at NAMM, and he put it on his Facebook, and that video got over 15 million views.
Wow.
So, it was like this kind of cool little thing that we had going on, and it was just a natural type of thing. I've never met more gregarious and loving people than the drum brethren that we have here. So yeah. I don't know, man. It's a cool thing. How about you, Rick?
Man, I've had some students hook me up with gear, like when I've had some recording sessions. Like they'd bring in a snare, and we'd put a new Aquarian head on the snare, and I'm playing that snare going, "Oh man, that thing sounds like magic. Can I use that for a studio session?" And they're like, "I love that," you know? And so, because, you know, in the studio, especially snare drums, it's like you got to find just that right drum.
Yep.
So it's nice to have your colleagues who can help contribute to that. And then, because you might have the perfect sounding drum, but not perfect for that song. So, and then it's really, really fun. You know, Gene, my brother-in-law, Gene Hoagland, his studio is right down the hall. And we're always sharing gear. I love it. He's like, "Hey, Rick, I have a session. I need every cowbell you have." You know? And so he did a session, and he recorded layer upon layer upon layer of cowbell. And there's a song coming out. I can't say who the artist is, but a guitarist from Guns N' Roses that you may all know does the guitar solo on it. And when you hear that song, you're gonna hear all the cowbells. Those are all my cowbells. So that's
that's awesome, man. Hey, I want to jump. This is a great place to jump into this. And Rick, you and I talked about this. So one of the things that I think kind of spurs, for me, at least a place where you go a little bit negative is that imposter syndrome thing. You know, I'm so thankful for what I do, and I'm not only with the SMB and DEC, but I absolutely love being a drum teacher. I absolutely love seeing students, like, they have light bulb moments or their successes that they go on to have. Mm-hmm. And it's really easy to get caught up in imposter syndrome because, especially here on DEC, because you know what started this whole thing was Billy Cobham. You watch Billy Cobham play and you're like, how in the heck, how do you play like that? So that's all of a sudden where that imposter syndrome starts creeping in and eating you up a little bit. Now, I remember one time Rick and I were, I think it was during the imposter syndrome show that we did a few years ago. I think you said this, Rick, and we talked about this, so I know it's okay to say. You had said one time, you were like, "Man, I'm not even the best drummer in my family." And I thought that was the greatest thing. And so your brother is Gene Hoagland. Now, if you guys watching this or watch it in the future, you don't know who Gene Hoagland is, just Google the guy and watch him play, and you'll go, "Oh yeah, I get it." The guy's freaking phenomenal. And I mean, Thanksgiving dinner at your house must just be insane. What's it like, and does it bother you? Is that a thing?
Gene is the sweetest guy in the world, and a drumming genius, and I just love him. And so it's fantastic because we get to talk drums all the time, and then of course my wife's a drummer and she's badass in her own right. And then my wife's sister is Gene's partner, Laura Christine. They're up in Vancouver right now recording an album for Dark Angel at a studio where Aerosmith is recorded and Bon Jovi is recorded. I mean, they're like at that level, you know, and Lars laying down, you know, guitar tracks and so it's super fun. I think what it is we're all just so encouraging and supportive of each other, you know.
That's great.
And you know, Gene validates my drumming all the time, you know, and it's very, very helpful. It really, really is. He's like, what is that you're doing? You know, and or I'll say things like, I think it's a stretch, but it's very sweet. It's like, if you can read music, you're a better drummer than me, you know? And he did that. Check out the Why Hunger that Dom Famulero put together. It's a recording of Come Together with a lot of famous drummers. And they sent Gene out a chart and arrangement, and Gene brought it into me because Gene doesn't read. He can listen to something and just memorize it perfectly. He's one of those talented people who really can do that. But he did at least look at the arrangement a little bit, and he brought that to me to help him out with it. And so that was just such an honor. I think what we have to do, like digging in a little deeper, is we've all got to watch that little voice in our head. We've all got a little character in our head. Who's never happy, who's always is just looking for the next thing to be upset about, to complain about. And I think every human has it. And I think it goes back. I think it's a genetic thing. Some people have it more than others. And then when we're down, we tend to want to prove ourselves right. You know, unfortunately, we look for reasons to reinforce why we're down, to prove that we're right, or to prove that person sucks, or to prove that you're not good enough. You know, I might say, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not as good enough as Gene Hoglan. And then I'll come up with 20 things in my head to reinforce that. Well, he's playing at this arena gig, and he's playing in this session, and oh, I didn't get a gig today, and oh, there were only 3 students today instead of 6. And you know, it's just all this chatter, this useless chatter. And man, I think that's it. I think we all have that chatter, and stop listening to that chatter. I mean, I'm not saying deny things, but stop reinforcing the negative emotion is what I would suggest to do.
That's a good point, man. It brings me to a question that I'm having. Well, real quick, let me say hi to some people. Hi, James Harrison, Jim Royal. Thanks for watching. Stephen Gutierrez, David Betts, and Brian Hayes. We're glad you're all here. Thanks for watching. Make sure you comment when you get a chance to. But Rick, that makes me think of a question that I'd love to hear your answer for. Okay. When you are finding yourself in that down place, when that voice is gnawing at you and chattering, what are the steps you take to get out of that?
Stop. Stop. I read a book. I think it was a Michael Singer book, and he talked about that voice. He called it the inner roommate. So he imagined if that chatter was another person, like an invisible roommate sitting next to you, and they'd go like that, and they would be saying, "You suck, and this sucks, and it's hopeless." Would you listen? Dude, shut up, man! I don't want to, you know. So I just kind of, I kind of like step outside myself a little bit, and I kind of have a view. I like look down, I look at myself from the outside, and that tool actually kind of helps. And I mean, and this may not, everybody's got a thing that works for them. So I'm not saying my methods work, because, you know, everybody struggles with everything, you know, to figure this stuff all out every day. But I do kind of like look at myself from the outside. I don't know if I'm describing it well, but I'm like, oh, look at Rick, he's bumming today, you know, and I just kind of observe it. And then I don't deny, I don't want to kick the can down the road. I mean, you've got to process it. You've got to let that negativity, you know, you can't bury it. You definitely can't bury it, but
Right.
I don't want to reinforce it. And that's what I do is I try to not reinforce it. So of course, breathing works,
Mm-hmm.
exercising works.
Mm-hmm.
Or Chip, I bet you have this amazing ability where you just call people up. It's the sweetest thing out of the blue, like you did with Bart. You've done that with me. Like, hey, I was just thinking about you. What can I do for you? And I think sometimes that just sort of shifting gears a little bit can help.
Right
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. And I definitely think breathing, and believe it or not, man, play some drums.
Play some drums.
Yeah. But
And
you know what? Daniel Mark in the comments, Daniel just said something. He says, "Hey guys, I'm there now. I listen to music that inspires me. I'm currently working on Rush songs and what's it? I can't read it from here. Who's the other one?
currently working on Rush Song Manhattan Project.
Oh, Manhattan Project. Okay, yeah. I'm my TV that I'm broadcasting on. It's this small. Anyway, yeah, definitely. Music is there. We've talked about this on the show. Music is there, and it's there at every moment of our lives, right? I mean, it's literally like you walk into the grocery store, music is there. You get in the car, you turn on the radio, music's there. You got your phone, Spotify, music is there, and it definitely uplifts us. And I think we have to also, and I agree with everything you said, Rick, exercise, eat right, go to the gym, go for a walk, breathe, read an inspiring book. And then also I got to say this, and this is going to bring around another subject. Well, kind of the one we already talked about with your brother-in-law, Gene. Don't compare yourself to other drummers. I mean, like Daniel Mark, for instance. I've known Danny for years, and the dude's a fantastic drummer, and he's and he's a better human being. And I can say that about all you guys. I mean, Chip is a fantastic drummer and a better human being. I mean, I think it's about being part of that connection, and drumming is something that we do. It's just like if you have your job is, fixing tires on cars. That's what you do. That's not who you are. And I think that sometimes, and Rick, you touched on this the other day, and if you're watching the show now or in the future, social media is great. But I think that social media is something that needs to be used as an advertising tool. I have always thought of Facebook and social media as, hey, here's where I'm playing. Here's my new book. Buy it, please. Here's my new this. Here's my new that. The band's playing over here. It's not a comparison. It is not and the people that are playing, I'm not knocking that, but don't compare yourself to the guy that's playing double bass chops at Mach 7,
Right.
When for myself, when I'm playing in the Sam Morrison band, why would I mean, would I like to be able to do that? Yeah, sure. But would I ever use it? No. So I remember Roy Burns once said, drummers spend 90% of the time practicing stuff they never use, So I try to practice the stuff that I use. And I think when we start comparing ourselves to other people, and it doesn't have to be a drumming thing. It can be like, God, I wish I had a cool derby like Chip Ritter, and and I compare myself with that. Well, I can, you can find yourself going down that wormhole. And I've seen people that with social media, this has happened to me. I'm screaming from, the top of the mountains that my band is playing here and we're the best thing since sliced bread. And it was the same as back in the day. If you remember back in the day, you go be advertising for a show, you had a stack of flyers and a bucket of glue, and you went up to the post and you put glue on the post and you put your flyer up there, and you drove down 2 blocks and you did the same thing. You wallpapered every place with your band's flyers. Well, Facebook and social media is a great place to hang up your flyers and more people see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And some people get really offended and turned off and threatened by that. And I've witnessed it firsthand. Mm-hmm. So if you're threatened by something, I think that speaks more to who you are than what the other people are doing. But don't compare yourself. Rick, you've already said that. You don't compare yourself to Gene. How could you do that? Why would you do that?
Why would I do that? Why would I touch that hot plate? Right.
Right. Chip, what about you? Have you ever found yourself there where you see another drummer and you're like, oh, I suck?
Oh,
you know?
Man, I think I was 17 and taking lessons from Fred Hayes, and he recommended a Dave Weckl video to me it was just Dave Weckle's first VHS tape. And I went home and I watched the video and I watched him play, and I literally threw my drumsticks in the garbage can. I was done.
Screw this.
I was done. I was not inspired. I was totally dejected. I totally felt horrible. And I talked to Fred about it too. I was like, you know what? This guy's already done it. And Fred took me aside and put me under his wing, and he was like, look, you have something to offer. Every drummer has a different gift. You need to find out what you do, find your sound, find your lane, find what you excel and what you like about it, and do what you love about it. Love what you do what you love. That's the key to that. And, another thing, thinking about getting back up when you are down and when you are in that place of negativity, one of the best things I've learned is to take out a piece of paper and write out a 10-point gratitude list of things that I'm grateful for that I already have in my life that are in my control. Like anything at all counts. You can say shoes or toilet paper or your phone or whatever you happen to be grateful for in that moment. And something about that lifts your spirits a little bit. Somebody else said music. Music is always there, Bart. And on my phone, I say, play all my songs shuffled. And when a song comes on, if it doesn't immediately make me feel better, I hit the next button. And I'll do that until I hit a song that makes me feel a little bit better. And I'll listen to that song and just dwell on what I like about it, the groove or the snare sound or how the mix is. And I'll just let that kind of lift me up, man. That's what I do.
That's great, man. That's awesome. I want, you talked about Weckl, so I've gotta say this. I remember I was given a drum clinic one time, and it was when I was studying with Dom, and it was like I think it was my first clinic or one of my first clinics, and Gretsch was advertising it, and I was getting a lot of push on the thing. And all of a sudden, for some reason, it popped in my head that Dave Weckl was going to be at my clinic, and I don't know where it came from. And so I'm calling Dom. I called him up in a lesson. I'm like freaking out. I'm like, dude, I'm doing this clinic, and I this and I that, and blah 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 blah. And Dom was like, hey, what are you gonna do, man? You gonna drum Dave Weckl? Probably not. That's Dave Weckl. You be you. It's the same thing, Yeah. And it really made me feel good, because it was like, why would I compare myself to Weckl? I mean, why would I do that? He doesn't compare himself to me,
Yeah.
And so, yeah. And we've gone through that. For sure.
Also, I was at the, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I was at the 2014 Chicago Drum Show, and I was doing a live Facebook video to my friends. Right before I went on, I was getting ready to start warming up and doing my thing. And I was talking to my friends and looking at the camera. And behind me, I noticed that JoJo Mayer walked in. And I'm sitting here telling my friends about my warm up and what's good about it and how it's going to help and the things you can do to improve your drumming. And I'm talking as if I know something about drumming in front of JoJo, Oh man, this whole thing is a farce. I'm a fraud.
Yeah.
It's never gonna work. Oh my God, who am I kidding? But you know what? You live and you learn through things like that. It's good to see something and be inspired by it. And that's the trick, is to find something that intimidates you, but then turn it around and find out what is it that I like about that, and how can I incorporate that in my playing and make my life better?
Yeah.
That's it.
That's great. Rick, you were going to say something.
Daniel Mark said you get out of drumming what you put into it. Thanks, Daniel.
Yeah, dude, it's so true. Yeah, you're going to put out that actually spurs a question. But Rick, you go first, and then I'll ask my question. Rick.
say something to Daniel Mark, and he said he's there now. We're all there at one point, but I'll tell you what, Daniel, if you're playing along to Rush, you're a badass. So
Absolutely.
people dream, even if you're in the ballpark of it too,
Yeah.
And the other thing that I wanted to say, I really wanted to hit up more on the social media, because social media should come with a warning label, like a potent, lethal, deadly drug.
Yeah.
It can really, really help you. It can be great for advertising. You can learn some stuff, but it can be daunting. The studies of what's going on with people watching social media is staggering, how bad it can be for your mental health, because we're always comparing. Remember, it's all people's highlight reels. All of the drumming that we see on it, that's take 20 that these people did.
Yeah, exactly.
They're showing off. Groove is what gets you further in your career mostly. And fancy riffs usually get you fired from gigs. So you're watching videos of people doing fancy riffs. They're not really playing in bands. They're isolated. They're just working on fancy riffs. I love fancy riffs, as you guys all know. But don't watch them if they make you feel bad, and especially kid videos. Man, please, like watching, I don't know very many professional drummers who are like, ooh, look at this 10-year-old, how great they are on the drums. Why would you do that to yourself? Why would you watch that? So I'm at the point with a lot of my students where I'm like, yeah, stop watching YouTube. Don't even bother. Let's and what I'll tell people to do is watch a drummer for inspiration who's playing with a band.
Yeah.
And see what they're doing musically, and see what they're doing with a band. Watch all those great people, not just somebody at home riffing like crazy. So
I had an opportunity. I worked with you guys know who producer Michael Blum is?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I got to do a number of albums with him, and I did some one-offs with him, like where I got hired to do some songs. And it was amazing working with him. And it was just absolutely, I learned so much. And I learned a lot because he was really hard on me. I mean, he was a typical record producer that had a billion hits to his name. I mean, he produced Madonna, he produced Suicidal Tendencies, he had done all this stuff.
Wow.
And he was that guy that he was really hard on the drummer. You came in and you played perfect, or you got fired, right? And so I remember I was in the middle of this one song that I was recording for this lady, and I put a drum fill. I did not, but this is what happened. Maybe I got close. But I'm playing, and I at the end of this song I did this drum fill, and it wasn't, it was just booga-dooga-dooga. It was nothing crazy, but I thought it fit, and it was a full bar drum fill. I remember that. So it wasn't like 3, 4 and out. It was 1, 2, 3, 4, bucket the boom, shittle bump bang, bop, whatever it was, it came out of me, and we're in there listening to playback, and I remember thinking to myself, whoa, he didn't say anything about the drum fill. I got one past him because he hated drum fills. We listened to it. He goes, yeah, it's a pretty good take. And we go back, and we get back to that section, and we get to that fill, and he looks me square in the eye. He goes, this ain't a fucking drum solo record. He cut it out and grabbed the groove and put it. It's like, oh man, that sucked. But yeah, Rick, my point is, you made it, and that's not a slam to Michael. Please don't take it that way. It was eye-opening to me. I put a drum fill in there that was like, shouldn't have been there. And sure enough, at the time I wasn't too happy, but when the record's done, you listen back, it's like, yeah, that drum fill would have stepped on the vocal. I wasn't, I was more about me. And so that would be something that could really get you down. Okay, here's my question that Danny's response to his thing about being there now. We talked about to get out of your head, to go work out, read a book, listen to music, inspirational stuff.
Call a friend.
Call your friend, all these things. What about, and this is an ego thing. We've talked about this on the show. What about taking drum lessons? Should you take drum lessons? I mean, I've been playing my entire life. I take drum lessons all the time. Should you take drum lessons? Chip, you've been playing forever. Should you take drum lessons?
Absolutely. I just had a drum lesson with Glenn Sobel, and I got humbled and humiliated, and it was amazing.
As you should.
And
right?
he was talking to me about putting the work in. You know, he was talking about BPMs and writing down his BPMs on specific things, like using the drummer's weekly practice journal.
Thank you. Go to Amazon. Hey, look, what a coincidence. I've got one too. Wow.
To mark down your BPMs, to have the goals, and you know what I mean, and to be and to hold yourself accountable. And it was like a refreshing, I need to hold myself accountable. And so I started getting my heater warm up back out and started doing my hour a day practice regimen that I've got down, and I'm better because of it. And so absolutely, I believe every drummer should have type of lessons or even shed sessions with other drummers. That's where you really iron sharpens iron, and it's very cool. How about you, Rick?
Man, all right. It's going to put me on my soapbox a little bit. I have to
jump up there, baby. Jump up there. Preach on, brother Rick. Preach on.
I feel, and anybody could call me and debate me on this at all, but if you're one of those people who can be affected by a teacher who's going to beat you down, don't study with them. I only want to work with a teacher who's going to make me feel good and encourage me and give me new insights and inspire me to get better. I don't want a teacher who's going to make me feel like crap about my drumming. They mess me up. And I'm going to say to all you teachers out there who are that kind of tough drum teacher, you're not helping out the drum community. You might think, and it's just satisfying your ego to humble somebody down, but you are not encouraging people. And our community, our culture needs artists. We need musicians, and we need to encourage people, not beat people down. Have such a messed up, or some of these guys are so brutal. And what's the point? Are you that so you have to feel better about yourself by taking a great drummer and telling them that they suck and making them feel bad? I really, really only want to work with people who are encouraging, and it goes for band members too. I perform the best on the drums when I'm working with band leaders who are encouraging and working together as a community to get the best job done. Not somebody there to beat you up and tell you that you play like shit or be rude to you. And so I'm going to stick with that. And I know it's not popular. And I know that there's a lot of guys who are like, oh man, that drum teacher was the toughest guy ever. He made me feel like crap, but it was the best thing that ever happened to me. Was it really the best thing that happened? I mean, maybe you could have, maybe you got a little bit better, but if you're that strong internally that you could get beaten up, go with a drill sergeant teacher. But that's it. I'm on my soapbox. I told you I would get it.
I think that's some great points.
You made some great points. And when Chip said that he got beat up by Glenn Sobel, and I don't know what the lesson was like, and I said, as you should. Here's what I meant by that. I want to clarify. I think when you go to a drum lesson, because I've had this happen where a student came in that was a guy that could play. I think you should walk away from the lesson not feeling humbled by the other person, but I think if you're going to take a lesson, the teacher should be giving you things that you're not good at. It's like we talked, when I sit here in my practice sessions and I'm sitting at my drums and nobody's around and I'm practicing, I don't sound good. I'm not supposed to sound good. I'm practicing. There's a difference between practicing and playing. And I think when you take a lesson, the teacher should be giving you stuff that you can't play. And I'll give you an example. I took some lessons you know, again, I've been so fortunate to study with some amazing drummers. And one of my lessons I remember with Bissonette, I came back with my tail between my legs. My bass player buddy Matt, he goes, "What's wrong, man? You seem down." I go, "Dude, I took a lesson with Bissonette the other day, and we were playing, and we were working on some samba stuff, this crazy fast samba stuff, and I couldn't do it, man. I just felt humiliated." He goes, "Well, you were taking a drum lesson," and I go, "Yeah." He goes, "Well, how far did you drive?" And I go, "Drove all the way up, you know, way past the valley, you know." And he goes, "How long did it take you to get there?" I go, "I got stuck in traffic, so it was like 3 hours." "How long did it take you to get home?" "Oh, it was like an hour and a half." "Oh, how much did you pay for the lesson?" "I paid $100. "Okay." And you went up there and you didn't sound good, right? Well, that was what a drum lesson's for, man. You're not supposed to sound good. You're supposed to practice that. It was really eye-opening to me. And I have to say, you know, Greg's been on the show, and anybody that knows Greg knows that he's like Gene. He's just the nicest damn guy in the world. So yeah, you know, when I learn from him, I learn through kindness, and he did. I mean, and I reversed my think. I was like, yeah, man, you know, I couldn't play that. Now I can. You know, now I can play the samba. Now I can play the bossa novas and the Afro-Cuban and stuff like that because of what he taught me, and I had to let my ego go. So I think that a drum lesson. I agree with you. I think because I've worked with musicians who, not only in lessons but at gigs where they're just it's not a good vibe. And so you definitely want to have the good vibe. Now, what about this? Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this for a second. Have you ever had, because Rick, you talked about musicians and working with people that just weren't good to work with, and were they not good to work with because they were jerks, or did they just not have it together and really know what they were doing, and you're trying to nurture them to go what they're doing, and every time you tried to say, "Hey, won't we try this?" they would shoot you down. That's a situation I've been in, and I got frustrated and I became the jerk. Talk to me about that.
I think a lot of times the musicians sometimes who've been tricky are the ones who really just don't know how to articulate what they're trying to get.
Yeah.
Like a good band leader. A good band leader is the person who could get the most out of every player.
Yeah.
And that's why they're a good band leader. But if they're just spewing some sort of nonsense out that no one can understand, then it's going to be a lot harder to figure out what they want to do. So I mean, I have been really blessed. I have been really lucky. Most people have been very, very happy. But I had one time I was out on the road, and the leader of the band would pull out a metronome. He'd record each set, and he'd pull out a metronome and play the song, and there'd be like 5 BPM fluctuation. And he would give the bass player and I a hassle about the 5 BPM.
That's just being a dick.
And I'm like, man, I tell you what, the crowd was going crazy. The merch was like crazy. We signed a lot of autographs. We must be doing something right. And so I think what it is just kind of articulating what you want. And so for that tough drum teacher or tough band leader, it's up to you, the teacher, to convey the idea. That's the teacher's job. It's the responsibility of the teacher. It's not like, let me beat up this student because they're not getting it and make them feel bad or make them feel like they need to work that much harder. It's more like that's how I approach every lesson I give. It's my job to inspire. And if they're sucking, I kind of feel like it's me. It's
dude,
I need a tool. I need like 20 tools to be able to teach them how to figure it out. And that's not just a lesson. That's like a band leader, but that's life. That's communication within people. We need to learn to work with each other, not beat them down.
Yeah, a teacher is kind of like, in my opinion, the ideal teacher, drum teacher for me is like Bruce Lee. They hack away at the unessential. They try to remove the blocks and reveal what the student truly is and help that student find their path, their way for their situation.
Right.
Right. That's so it, Chip. Like, what if the person is just not, you're taking a lesson in Brazilian samba, but the person doesn't like Brazilian music?
Yeah, right.
Really?
Yeah.
You know, it's like you're going to beat them up and tell them to work harder at all. It's like, well, maybe you're just teaching them the wrong thing. Or maybe it's day. Maybe it's just that day that's not, you know, a real good teacher should have an arsenal of things that they can teach.
Yes.
And know when to work on the right, what to work on that day, because sometimes people are in the mood. They're more receptive. They're going to be more open one day or not the next day. So
see, dude, you hit the nail on the head. So many areas there, right? When a student's not getting it, or a student is not like they're not understanding, or they're not, I'm not able to pull it out of them, I take that so personal. That's on me. What am I doing wrong? You know, and I can't fault the student for that. I have to, like you said, oh, we're not understanding that here. Well, let's try. Okay, here's my book, School of Hard Rocks. Okay, that's not working. Well, here's Rick's book. Let's do that. Oh, that one's not working. Here's the Nard book. Let's try the Nard. Oh crap. Here's Chip's book. Here's Snare Forest One. And just,
oh, Chip's book worked.
Yeah, Chip's book got them to where they needed to be. Those other guys got nothing. Nothing.
That's the ticket.
That's it, man. You know,
No, but I hear what you're saying. I hear what you're saying, Bart.
Yeah, no, it's true, right? I mean, you have to, what you just said, Chip. You got to kind of chop away at the stuff that isn't essential there, you know, and yeah, you know, and kind of lift the student up, you know, and I agree with you, man. There are some. I've taken. You know, I remember this when I was in college. You know, I remember taking a class, and the teacher that was teaching it was a drum class. It was actually we were working on Latin grooves. Rick, you're talking about Brazilian, you know, sambas and stuff, and we're working on these grooves, and you know, when somebody couldn't get it, the teacher was. You know, he was belittling. He's a great drummer. And I just remember thinking to myself, you know, I'm paying for this class. You know, I'm the one paying you, and I'm not being, you know, I'm not taking a class on being cut down. I'm taking a class to learn, you know. And so I agree with you on that wholeheartedly. I do think when you walk away from a lesson, you should walk away. I think you should walk away like, oh my God, I got my work to cut out for me. But you shouldn't walk away, you know, wanting to open a vein either. You know, I don't.
You should walk away also wanting to practice.
Yes,
to feel motivated towards that goal. A great teacher, Fred Hayes, taught me by example and would play things. Then he'd explain them and show me, and then he would play it again. And I would like start working on it. And at the end of the lesson, he would play it again. And he sounded so good. It made me want to run home and go try it.
Yeah. That's the way Ralph Humphrey was. I remember working on something with him. And this was when he was like at the height of the Dancing with Stars thing. And we were talking about that band for Dancing with Stars band, how good it was. And I remember whatever it was that he and I were working on, he sat down at the kit and played it. And it was just perfect. I mean, everything about it was just like the way he touched the drums. Everything was just incredible. It was just phenomenal. Mm-hmm. And I walked away like inspired not only to want to go home and practice to play that feel and to get that, but I wanted to pull those sounds out of my drums. I went home and started tweaking my tuning and setup.
Yeah.
I mean, it's everything, right? I mean, it's all
Yeah.
encompassing, you know.
Yeah.
You know, I need to. You know what I'm inspired to do? I've got to go buy a friggin' derby today, dude. I've got to buy a derby. The sun cannot go down before I own a derby. Hey,
Right.
everybody, listen, it's been an hour and we got to get out of here. And I have a strange feeling by the way that this show went that we're probably going to have another show on this, because this was, I think there is a lot of other things that we can touch on. I want to thank everybody for watching and chiming in. And if you are watching this and chiming in and you're a drummer and you're feeling down about yourself, you're not feeling good, you can reach out to any of us, like Rick and Chip said, and myself too. Seek professional help if it's
direct message us.
Yeah, send us a DM. If you want to take a lesson, if you want to talk, whatever, man, we've all been there. 2 weeks ago, I was there, and one of the things I'm gonna end the show with this. I'm going to ask this question and we'll end the show. It seems like the further you get into it, when you're running in a circle where you're hanging out with Gene Hoglan or Billy Cobham comes on your podcast, or Greg Bissonette comes on, or we had Garibaldi on, for God's sakes, you're kind of in around all these guys that are great drummers, right? And I remember watching a thing with Leonardo DiCaprio once, and he was talking about the laws of attraction, and him and a few other actors, they were like, well, you obviously attract what you fear. And he goes, well, then I'm obviously afraid of great actors because I'm always around them. I thought that was funny. Well, I think that, if you're a football player, you're going to hang out with football players. If you're an actor, you're going to hang out with actors. If you're a drummer, you're going to hang out with drummers. And if you're hanging out with drummers and they're great drummers, well, then you must be a great drummer too. So my question is that true, Rick?
I think it is to a degree. I think they will rub off on you if you're open. If you're closed and you say you're not good enough and you feel like you don't belong there, you probably will manifest that you don't belong there. But if you feel you belong there and you're inspired and you're taking all of these steps, you'll get there.
Excellent. Chip, what do you think? True or false?
I think it's true. I think people are social animals. We mimic things and we respond and we kind of get empathetic. I think that you are the sum total of your 5 best friends. I think you end up seeking the same things and talking about the same things, and that it can work in a negative way as well. You know what I mean? So watch out who your influences are and fill your life with positive people like Rick Stojak and Bart Robley.
And Chip Ritter, and we would be remiss if we didn't say Jeremy Steinkohler.
Jeremy Steinkohler as well, yeah.
The Steamroller. He's on a tour right now with his son, going to colleges because his son is a absolute ripping jazz piano player, and so good on him. So Jeremy Steinkohler. So DM any one of us if you want to talk or take a lesson or just do whatever. Everybody have a great Tuesday. We will see you next week. And I don't know what we're going to be talking about, but we'll be talking about something. Rick, play the drums. Come on, play them. Go.